everyone to the Lunch and Learn Making of an Entrepreneur. I am Pamela Reed, the new Managing Director of Community Programs here at the Venture Center. This program gives us an opportunity to tie in community programs and fintech. Today's program is going to be moderated by Wayne Miller, the Executive Director here at the Venture Center. But before I turn it over to Wayne, I just want to remind everyone that you have a couple of options to ask questions as we kind of go through the presentation and hear these wonderful stories of these founders. You can use the chat or you can use Q&A, and we'll try to make sure that those questions get fielded as we go through the program. With all of that being said, Wayne, I'm going to turn it over to you to kick us off.
Outstanding. Pamela, thank you. And we are so happy to have you as a member of the Venture Center team as you lead our community programs into this next few years. So thanks for being a part of this and giving me an opportunity to kick off today. So Lunch and Learn is something we've been doing at the Venture Center for quite a while. And as most of you know, the Venture Center has been a champion of fintech solutions for both community banking as well as for our larger partner, FIS, and helping them with that roadmap. And now in our fourth year with the ICBA program, we have with us today a couple of members of that cohort. But before I kick off and we talk about how we sort of bring that together today and what these folks go through in order to be a part of this program, I want to make sure that I take a moment to always say thank you to our sponsors. Of course, the ICBA, who sponsors the ICBA ThinkTECH Accelerator, now in its fourth year, the state of Arkansas, who also contributes greatly to that program through our grant. Of course, the Little Rock Regional Chamber, Jay Cheshire and the team there, who has been a founding member of the Venture Center and continues to support us. Frost Accounting, obviously Simmons Bank, and Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, who all support us from a corporate perspective for our community programs. So the FinTech Accelerator, like I said, the ICBA is now in its fourth year. Our objective there is to find solutions that are relevant to community bankers and provide them with solutions that they can genuinely put to work tomorrow. You know, back in the days when we first started in the fintech business at the Venture Center, we worked really with very early stage companies, really kind of startups. And today, through the leadership of the Accelerator team and the way in which our bankers have really said to us, hey, you know, while startups are very cool and we love that stuff, in order for us to remain competitive, we need solutions that are relevant today that we can really deploy tomorrow, that we can reach into our toolbox and put to work. So today, as we work with the ICBA, that is our objective, is to find banking enabling solutions and technologies that enable these banks to remain competitive, that they can put to work tomorrow. We've been very effective in areas like PPP, cyber, CRM, dashboarding, cyber, you know, and so many other things that you'll hear about from these folks today. So, you know, about 400 to 500 companies apply for this program every year. Some would suggest that it's more difficult to get into the accelerator programs at the Venture Center than it is to get into Stanford or Yale or Harvard. I would agree with that. I think it's more fun also, and it's not quite as expensive, which is probably a good thing as well. But having said that, look, today's really about learning from these 5 entrepreneurs who have started these fintech companies so that other entrepreneurs in our community can learn about what they do. So let me start off by asking each of them to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their business, where they're from, and then we're going to get into the big question of why and why you started this. So Kim, let me start with you, if I could, please. We have Kim Snyder, who's the CEO and founder of KlariVis. Kim?
Wayne, thanks so much. I appreciate being included in the panel discussion today and look forward to hearing what everyone else on the call has to say, quite frankly. So I'm Kim. I'm the CEO and founder of KlariVis. What we are doing is solving the data conundrum in the banking business. And so in the banking space, lots of banks have lots of different systems with key data points on it, and KlariVis is here to translate that data, normalize it, and turn it into actionable insights for our banks. I'm from Roanoke, Virginia. That's where my company is headquartered, and I'm a former community banker. So when we get into talking about my story, you know, I think that's one of our value differentiators, is our team is comprised of bankers that understand the industry.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. And that is a huge differentiator. I think really enables you to be able to communicate very effectively with community bankers. You understand their pain, and you have certainly walked in their shoes. Ryan, how about you from DocFox?
Yeah, sure. So I have a slightly different accent. So my name's Ryan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DocFox. And we basically automate business account opening. So it turns out, we started in 2016. And what we saw was that while there were great solutions out there for consumer account opening, business accounts are just a lot more complex. They're highly variable. And so that was the opportunity that we saw. And that's what we help streamline today for over 250 financial institutions. In terms of my accent and background, so I'm originally from South Africa. And so I immigrated to the US in 2018 and now live in Boston via Miami. So that's been my kind of geographical journey. Yeah, super excited to be here today, and just really grateful also to the Venture Center and ICBA for such an incredible program so far.
Good deal. Thanks, Ryan. Ryan is, in fact, CEO and co-founder of DocFox. Caleb King from Wealthstack.
Hi there. I'm Caleb. Wealthstack. We set this company up originally because we wanted to provide and still want to provide education to people who are underserved and underrepresented in the finance community and also in media and in advertising. That was our initial why. What we've done now is we've created a company that provides retirement solutions to small businesses across the community. And we are matching small business owners up with community banks to provide an array of financial services and products. All of this tied together with the content that we produce that is targeted specifically to the people that need it. And so we focus a lot on CRA fulfillment for banks, and that's been a great success point for us because of our ability to produce the content and monitor how much of it is watched, and then tie that directly to how we provide these products to the community banks. I grew up in Texas, East Texas, all-American boy, went to West Point. That's where I met my co-founder, Andrew Glaze, who's our resident finance expert. And so we're all veterans. We really enjoy coming to work every day, and we really appreciate being able to come here and talk about our business with you guys. Thank you.
Awesome, Caleb. And of course, thank you for your service, my friend. We appreciate you very much. Pankit.
Yes, my friend. Yeah, hi. So I have the most different and difficult accent from all of you out here. I am based in Mumbai, India. I've lived across in the US in Phoenix, San Diego, New Jersey before coming back to India to start Sequretek. We are an enterprise cybersecurity company, essentially got formed with an aim to simplify security. And the whole intent for us was to make security democratized and accessible to the mid-market. And we strongly believe that this whole market is all about haves and have-nots in a different context. Simply because if you are a larger enterprise, you have the resources and the wherewithal to ensure that your environment is secure from external threats. In the mid-market, community banks and credit unions and otherwise, you have a significant challenge that your problem from digital transformation, technology ingestion is very similar to a large enterprise, but you do not have the resources to make sure that the whole transformation is secure. And more often than not, the security journey becomes a challenge. And we felt that if through a combination of our products and services, if we could make that life easy and simple for you, we could hopefully change the way the whole security realm gets viewed in this space. And that's where we are. We've been around for 8 years, about 400 employees and 100 plus customers globally.
You have 400 employees today, is that correct?
Yes, we are.
My goodness, that's a challenge, right?
Yes, indeed. We still remember the names of the people, so tough one.
Do you make it more name tags? You know all their names, man?
Yeah. We'll have to figure some short, smarter way out.
There you go. Last and certainly not least, Don Shafer, the CEO and co-founder, and I think refers to himself as chief evangelist of Quilo. Don, welcome.
Thank you, Wayne, and thank y'all, everybody. Well, I've got an accent. I've picked up 67 years living in Texas before I moved to Montana here a year ago. This is my fourth company. This one, a couple of years ago, because I know bankers all over the country, and bankers were talking about how they needed to go digital because Gen Zs and millennials are not opening accounts in community banks because that requires typically going into a branch. So we said we need to create something digital. The other thing we noticed going on is about 70% of the customers at a community bank, they're all getting loans, installment loans, but they're not getting them from their bank. They're getting them from the buy now, pay later companies. They're getting them from the big bank issued credit card, Citibank, Amex, those guys are all offering installment loans. You got people going into businesses that had no intention to getting a loan, but yet they walk out with one. People go to the veterinarian and find out it's $1,200 to get their dog fixed. Or the people go to a med spa and they want to buy a $1,200 treatment. People go to the dentist and they're walking out with loans. So we decided what we need to do is build a fintech platform so that a community bank could be empowered to start offering loans at the point of sale and loans to their customers, and everything happens on a mobile phone. It's completely digital. And the reason we were able to pull it off, my co-founder, he's been building fintech for Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. So instead of building a fintech platform for the giant bank, we decided to start a company and take this to all the community banks in the country. So that's kind of a quick overview.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to stick with you because you started to sort of go down this path a little bit. I think one of the most interesting things as we are speaking to other entrepreneurs or prospective entrepreneurs who may be joining us today is the why, Don. You're a bit of a serial entrepreneur, if I can suggest that. It doesn't mean you eat Raisin Bran, but rather that you have done this a couple of times. And I would love to hear the why for you. What got you up out of bed one day and said, hey, and I'm going to ask all of you this. This is a problem I want to go solve, because as entrepreneurs, we tend to be problem solvers. That's sort of at our core. We see things, we're willing to take risk. Like I said, we're ready to get on those horses and ride them pretty hard. So tell us about the why.
Yeah. Well, I think there's probably maybe there's people on this call. What got me started was I just got fired from my third job because I always thought there was a better way to do stuff. And I'd go to my boss and he'd tell me to go pound sand, get back out there and keep selling. That's none of my business. And then I made the mistake of going to his boss, which never turned out well, because I knew I had a better way of doing things. At least I should listen. And my beautiful bride of 41 years, she is now, at the time she wasn't, but she said, you keep getting fired from everybody. Maybe you should figure out how to do something on your own. So that was the original why, because I thought, you know what, you're right. And so in all the companies, I just was in my last job was selling into banks, Wayne. And I always started looking at what do banks need that their customers are doing that banks don't have. And the first thing I saw was factoring. You got businesses at every community bank that need factoring their receivables factored, and community banks didn't do it. So there was a need. Okay, we started a company to help banks start factoring. And the next thing I saw was the next company, Bank Leasing. Now I noticed that people on banks' board of directors, typically very successful, big companies, and a lot of them leased equipment, but yet none of the banks offered equipment leasing. There, those guys on the board are sending checks to GE Capital, CIT. I thought, man, there's a huge opportunity there. Then anyway, that's just everything I've done is kind of look at where is the community bank missing out where their customers are already doing it. And so that's what we pursue.
Appreciate that.
Does that help?
Absolutely. I may come back to you. We should talk a little bit to all of you about the issue of validating these ideas. Ryan, let me move to you next a little bit and tell me about DocFox and once again, what made you wake up one day and decide to pursue this?
Well, ever since I was a kid, I've been passionate about account opening, and so it's
like,
funny.
Like what age did that start?
It is funny because I think I often talk to people and I say it's not that I'm so passionate. I mean, I'm really passionate about our company because I actually think that we offer a huge amount of value. I think it's not so much as that I'm super passionate about compliance and onboarding, right? But that I think I've always just loved working with people. And so for me, I've always enjoyed the opportunity to see growth and to create a platform where people, including myself, can actually grow. And so I've actually never worked anywhere in my life, so I'm not sure. So I don't know what it would be to kind of go through that experience. Ever since I was a kid, so when I was 12 years old, I kind of did my first entrepreneurial venture, which I think it was social, where we collected some canned food. And I was like, hey, how do we do this at a big scale? And I've always been like a big dreamer. And I said, well, why don't we break a world record? So why don't we attempt a world record and so at that stage, you had to fax Guinness World Records to get it, to see if you had a record available. And so we sent out a fax and they came back to me and they said, we've got a record for the largest canned food construction. I was like, what an arbitrary random world record, but that sounds good because that's going to help us collect food for charity. And it took me about a year and a half, but we ended up collecting over 9 tons of food. And we had the big mall where in the center court of the mall, we built a rocket in the shape of cans that balanced on one another. And we ended up getting like major bank sponsors, and we had KPMG who came in and they did the audit, and this whole thing was sponsored. It was like really cool. And I was 12 years old. And I remember at the time looking at this going, wow. I remember to this day, I have that image of standing looking at like what we did at the standing structure and thinking, that's pretty cool that's how the world works. How like if you just have an idea and you're prepared to persevere and just keep going at it and keep going at it and keep going at it, that like things kind of can come together, And so I said, wow, that's really awesome. I want to keep doing that for the rest of my life. I want to keep just trying to do big things and trying to do with people I care about and in kind of an authentic way. So that's kind of where I started. And so that was my why. And that's my why these days, which is I just love working with people and seeing people grow. And myself, I just love surrounding myself with people that can teach me and help me to grow. Because at the end of the day, if you're growing, then every single day you're encountering something that you've never done before, by definition, otherwise you're not growing. And so every day I'm doing stuff that I have no clue about. And in general, I have no clue what I'm doing, which is great. So that means that I'm learning all the time and I can surround myself with people, that are super talented. So, that's a lot of fun. And I think that's why, I enjoy what I'm doing.
I want to come back to you and we'll talk about, so how did you know you could turn that into a business? So working with people is one thing, but turning it into a business is another thing. Kim, how about you? Your journey's been pretty interesting with obviously your consulting and then into KlariVis, at working as a community bank. And clearly in your path, you tripped over something and said, wait a second, this is screwed up and I need to fix this or whatever. So tell us about that journey for you, please.
Yeah, absolutely, Wayne. So, I started my career as a CPA with KPMG, right? So I was, an accountant, if you will, doing the public accounting thing. And throughout my career, I landed in a startup company, like when I was 10 years out of college. And I didn't even know what the word venture capital meant when I went into that company. I had no idea, but I found myself spending 5 years of my life doing nothing but that, raising money and really cutting my teeth, if you will, on finance and the world of entrepreneurship. I was working for an entrepreneur who had been very successful, and I liked it. I liked the passion of it. I liked the grit of it. I liked all of it. But at the time I was raising a small child on my own. And so spending 50% of my time on airplanes, flying across the country trying to raise capital, it just didn't really jive with my personal life. And so my bank recruited me away. The bank that we were working with recruited me away to become their chief financial officer. And that's how I landed in banking. And honestly, I thought I was going to retire there until our bank sold. Drank the Kool-Aid every day, right? And our bank sold. And I like to say I had the opportunity to figure out what my next chapter was going to be. And I had, because of that stint earlier in my career of working for the startup company, I had always wanted to start something of my own. And I said, you know what, why don't I just dip my toe into consulting? And I'd love to start a consulting practice focused on the financial institution industry. I think, we did a lot of things really well at our bank, and I think I have something to share there. And my husband will laugh and say, I thought she was going to hang out, something in the basement of the house, right? And I very quickly hired 10 people to join me in that venture. And people ask me all the time, what are you the most proud of? And I'll tell you, it's that. Like, I convinced 10 people to say, put your faith in me and jump off this cliff with me. They left other full-time jobs. We had all worked together at our bank, and we started this consulting practice, and it was eye-opening. Every bank we went into, it didn't matter how big they were. It didn't matter what system they were on. They all were struggling with the same data problem that we had at our small community bank. And the light bulb literally just went off one day. I remember it vividly, 4 of us sitting around our conference room table talking about just how frustrated we were with trying to help our bank solve this problem. And we were like, we've got to go do this. And so that's really kind of how KlariVis was born. And it's been a fun journey so far.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I always say there's 3 things that entrepreneurs have to do. They have to raise capital, they have to raise people, and they have to raise customers, right? Those are the 3 things that we really do. When you find, when you start off on a journey like this, I'm curious, because you kind of mentioned all 3 of those. Of those 3, which has been the most difficult? Raising money, raising people, or raising customers?
Gosh, the people part, talent today is hard. I mean, there's just no question about it, right? With the market conditions as to what they are. But I would say, why don't I say my least favorite part has been raising capital. I'm sure most of the other entrepreneurs would agree with me there. It's just a full-time job, right? And I never thought of myself as a salesperson, right? I'm a CPA, right? I was never on the front line selling anything. Well, I've kind of gotten to where I really like talking to customers and I really like selling what we have because I'm so passionate about it and I know I can solve those problems. And so, I know we're going to get into what are some of our challenges, and I'll save that bit of my story for a future question. But the people part of it, I'm like Ryan, I love working with people. I mean, I just, I was really probably never the stereotypical CPA because I really do, and please CPAs don't hate me for saying that, but I really do love people, and I love the interaction, and I love to learn every day as well, and always try to surround myself with people who are much smarter than I am. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
it does. It is. Listen, it's interesting. That the piece you like the least is raising capital. But it's funny. Most of the time when you talk to entrepreneurs, it is not necessarily the hardest thing to do. It's usually
right.
Customers that tend to be the most difficult piece of that. But also to be able to convince people to jump to help join you in this journey, to get on this boat and go sail the ship together. That's a tough thing today, right? So it's always been a tough thing for sure. Let me move on to Pankit, and whose company is also hopefully going to be establishing a beachhead here in Little Rock. We're very excited about that, and also obviously integrating with his team that's in India. Pankit, what started you and Anand on this journey?
Question of why, I ask that question myself every day. Why did I do this in a lot of different ways? So I think so I spent good 21 years in the corporate world, working for large companies like IBM, NTT, Wipro. And the one thing that always bugged me is that it is very hard to define if the success is because of you or in spite of you. Right? In a large organization, you are a cog in the wheel, and you look back and you really wonder if you are making an impact. And after spending close to 2 decades, I kind of got to a point where, while I could look back and say, hey, I did something here or something there that I could potentially attribute my finger to. There wasn't anything that I felt that frankly, I could have been replaced and someone else could have potentially done it. So Anand and I, when so we are friends, we are relatives. He's my co-brother. A lot of things that we sit over a drink. And one day we were just sitting and bitching about this corporate life, and we felt that, hey, you know what? If we did the same activity that we were doing for others, for ourselves, maybe we could make a difference. And he came from the security world, and he had this deep passion about how there is a need for changing the realm of security from a underlying, under the hood technical problem to a business problem, a brand protection, a reputation builder, an enabler to digital transformation. And we felt that maybe the way the whole conversation is happening, where it was a bunch of 3-letter acronyms that were being thrown around in the tech world, and making it so complicated and difficult to understand, and thereby keeping it elitist, right? So you need to be in that close circle to really talk that security language. Why should it be so, right? And if it is elitist and close circle, which will always mean that it will always be in the realm of the haves, people who have money, have access, they will be able to get it and the rest won't be able to get it. So we felt that maybe we just break the paradigm. And frankly, if you ask anyone in Sequretek, the one thing that we will say is that if you remember us for nothing else 20, 30 years from now, just remember us for the fact that we simplified the way you understood security and you consumed security. It is no longer a subject of taboo or something that's almost like literally a ransom in the other context that you need to call the specialists and the SWAT team to solve it. Just talk the language that people are able to understand, empathize, appreciate, imbibe, and make it so easy that everyone in the organization works with it and makes it part of how you build a company. And what has ended up now in security is that it is actually like that, right? So they say that behind every successful attack, there is a human. That's the context that is being spoken about now. And we're so glad that we started with that premise that if you make it accessible, then everyone understands that not only is there a human behind the attack, but it's only the human that's going to prevent the attack. And that can happen only if it is the concept of simplicity and acceptability and democratization that can make it that way.
How old's the company today?
8 years.
8 years old. 400 employees. How much revenue are you generating today, may I ask?
So we will close this fiscal at about 6 million ARR, expecting to do about 12 million next year. So we went from 3 to 6 to 12.
And how have things resonated with you and the community banks and this journey of simplicity?
Oh, it's been so rewarding. So before this, so let's say in India, we are very large with the banking ecosystem. Of the 120 customers, 70 of them are in the banking ecosystem from some of the very large banks. So the largest private sector bank in India with about 170,000 employees, close to 6,000 branches, roughly about 120 billion in market cap is a customer on one end of the segment. And then we have an equivalent to a community bank, it's called a cooperative bank, which probably will be about 3 branches, maybe about 50 million in assets. So we transcend the realm. So when we entered US a few years back, I think about 2.5 years back, we had tried making an attempt to go after the banking ecosystem. Very quickly realized it's a closed ecosystem and you need to know someone who knows someone that will give you and walk you through that conversation. And had we not been part of the Venture Center ICBA ecosystem, we would have still been that someone who did not know someone who could not access that someone. So I'm so grateful that we are part of this ecosystem and getting to know these banks and being able to speak the language that they understand and appreciate. And frankly, last week or week, if I forget when I was in San Antonio, now the time has flown so fast. But it was an amazing experience talking to the bankers, people walking in and having this conversation. And I had a great colleague of mine, Chandu Kandu, who did a phenomenal job. Chandu Kandu. Who did a phenomenal job in explaining the value proposition much better than I could ever do. So that's the other part of being an entrepreneur, that you think that you have it all and you know it all. And here comes in someone with a whiff of energy and enthusiasm and completely changes the way you interact with the customer. So that would never have happened with me in an IBM or an entity. That much I can tell you.
Good deal. Well, it was so great to be back together, right? And to not be on Zoom, right? Anyway, so good deal. Thank you, Anand. Pankit. Thank you so much for the compliments, but more importantly for your vision and your insight. That's great stuff. Caleb, what you touched on this a little bit in your opening comments. What got you and Andrew and the other team of you guys having met at military school and serving together and so forth? But what decided you guys to go out to help solve what is a huge problem in this country, which is, I always boil it down to, it's remarkably expensive to be poor in this country, and you guys are trying to help with that. So tell us the why.
Yeah, I'll talk about my why in the context of Wealthstack first. I mean, Andrew and myself and Justin have all been curious about sort of why anyone does anything. And at the time when we were talking about this wasn't even a company. This was right about when the GameStop thing was happening, and everybody started reading things on Reddit, and suddenly human behavior becomes reality, and then thoughts, and then art becomes reality, and life mirrors art. So what is the data? How do you understand why people do things? This is what got me interested in our conceptual sort of how can we create content that will help educate people and change their behavior in a positive way. And so understanding that is very fascinating to me. And so we built a tool that can put this content out there, and it can create it in a way that it resonates with the people who are watching it, and it addresses a real issue that they're trying to solve themselves. So why did people go to Reddit to find out what to invest in? That's because they don't trust what's true in the media anymore. And so they'll read something, then they'll go to Reddit, then they'll go to YouTube, then they'll go to TikTok, who knows, whatever it is that they are interested in, they're going to go to that source and they're going to read about it. So why is that important? It sort of shows sort of a lack of trust in the information that we're able to get access to. And then depending on your literacy in how all of this works, your access to it, whether you have high-speed internet or whether you have an understanding of how the internet works, it's not fair, right? So now that everyone has access to digital, we have the opportunity to really give everyone the same access to everything. And so if we're able to really actively reach out to these people who need this information, utilizing a vehicle that can actually help banks attract these people to them at the same time, then that was our why. We really wanted to solve that problem. My personal why, I'm fascinated with the analytics. My background is in engineering. Our paths out of the military are different than your typical path, because you get out and then you're like, okay, well, now I need to find a job, right? And so, well, what do? You're used to having this common background where you all kind of think the same, right? And so, of course, I went into engineering and was drawn to construction. I'm a structural person, believe it or not, and so worked my way up to becoming an expert in a very specific thing. And then I quickly realized that I'm not interested in that anymore because I figured it out, right? So now, I really like the idea of being able to solve any problem for anyone at any time if you put enough thought toward it and you really look at the data, and then you make something and you give it to them as a tool that they can use. Now, that's my why. I really like solving problems, and that's my personal why. Now, our company why: how do we create situations that are beneficial to both our customers and to the employees of the communities that we're in? That is what makes it fun, and tying it all together in a way that we can turn it into a business. And I'll expound upon that further, I guess, in the next question.
Let me stay with that. First of all, I think Deming said, right, God we trust, the rest, everybody else bring data, wasn't that? I think Deming who said that. But my next question to each of you is kind of, what was your jumping off point? How did you know that you had a business, and how were you able to make this into a business? So you sort of concluded with that. So
yeah.
let me ask you to keep going on that, if you don't mind, and then I'm going to ask everybody else sort of the same question.
Yeah. So the light bulb came on when we saw that the U.S. was starting to wake up and realize that our communities are getting older, and people don't have a plan for retirement, and the way that we're set up as a nation, we value hard work and we want to put our own money in, and so that's the way our system is set up, and so we wanted to make it easy and sort of set up something special, rather than just making something that is the minimum requirement that people need to meet this. Let's give them a real tool that they can learn and they can use to invest. And then that was when the business idea sort of solidified back in about November, that a retirement plan that's easy to set up for small businesses, that gives their employees something that they can actually have in their hands and touch, and then slide to the right and start watching videos, and then slide to the left, and then they can look at their investments, and they can make sure that they have the tool right there with the trusted information that they know that their boss has looked at and said, yep, this is good. And then our compliance team has looked at this and said, yes, this is good. So We don't want them to go to 18 different spots. We want them to look at a video on the topic that they're trying to watch that they trust, and then, you know, act upon it. And so now we've got a place where individuals who have jobs can go to their app that they trust, that banks can also go to, and they can talk to those people directly, and in a place where everyone feels at home, and we can trust each other. That I keep saying that word, but that is the key to financial advertising and education, is that level of trust that makes it so you don't feel like you have to, you know, minimize and swipe over to Reddit and see what I'm saying is correct.
Thank you. Kim, I'm going to ask you the same question next. You know, you talked about the frustrations you had as the consultant and calling on your banks. And I think you used the same expression that Caleb did, you know, the light bulb went off, right? And you said, okay, I'm going to go do this. And you've turned this into a business. So talk a little bit about, how did you know you actually had a business? I mean, obviously people start paying you, right? Which is important, but
Right.
talk a little bit about that and sort of that jumping off point.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I will say that we were blessed, because because of my consulting practice, I had a research group of banks that I was able to work with for the first year of our development before we ever started the company, KlariVis. I took a few folks from my consulting practice and said, go figure this out. We actually built a fake bank data set inside of our consulting practice, and built a proof of concept. And during the course of 2018, we took that proof of concept through its various stages back and forth to the consulting clients that we had become trusted business advisors for, and got their input along the way. And it was really interesting, because as a CFO background, where do you think I started? I started on the finance side, because I was trying to solve the pain that I had, right, as a CFO inside of the bank. And every CEO that I went and said, hey, this is what we're trying to do, they all said, it's so funny, forget that. We've got CFOs to do that. We want you to go solve this. Go solve this for us. We need rev generation. We need to understand, you know, what are our customers doing with us? How are they engaging with us? Help us compete. Help us compete with the big boys. And so during that course of that year, we took their advice and we developed a proof of concept, and it was a working prototype. It looked like it was real, okay, but it was built off of this fake bank data set. And I took it back to, I'll say 8 to 10 of my consulting clients and said, okay, guys, this is what we've been working on. We appreciate your help throughout this past year. What do you think about it? And every single one of them said, if you can go do it, go do it. That is going to be a game changer for the industry. And so that is what gave me the confidence to set up the separate company and start to turn down my consulting engine, find some technology, because remember, I'm a CPA. I didn't know the first thing about writing code or creating a software development firm. And found some partnered with a group locally to kind of take that proof of concept and turn it into reality. And so that's how I knew I could make a business out of it, is because I had CEOs in the industry telling me, if you can go do that, go do it, make it happen.
You know, such an important lesson, right? So part of the success of the accelerator programs at the Venture Center has been the banks that we've had a chance to get involved here. As you guys know, you've talked to probably a few hundred bankers, if not more at this point, as we go through this program. And really, what we've been able to accomplish here is customer discovery at scale, right? And also collaborative customer discovery, right? It's not Shark Tank, as I like to say. This is where you have a chance to have that exchange. But, you know, there was a day and age when, you know, companies and people guessed at what they thought their customers want. Today, we've evolved into what you've done, which is, again, all about customer discovery, which is, look, I'm willing to make the investment. I'm willing to do what's necessary to be able to demonstrate what this thing could look like. But that validation that you accomplished through that customer discovery process really gave you the courage, the willingness, and the opportunity, as you mentioned, to really make a business out of this. So great lesson for entrepreneurs in that. Thank you very much, Kim.
Yep.
Don, how about you?
So what gave me, well, I guess I was really a lucky guy, because in all my companies, in other words, that I didn't have to go prove it. It was already being proven. Big banks were factoring invoices for their customers. Big banks were offering equipment leasing. Big banks had delivered internet banking. So the first three companies, that was already out there, but the community banks didn't have it. So the Kasasa actually saw the product in a bank in Missouri where they were offering 4%. This is in 2004. They were offering free checking with 4% interest and refund of all ATM fees. Well, in 2004, 4% interest on free checking, that was unheard. That was like, I thought there was a mistake. I actually went in and asked the CEO. There was a banner on 2 sticks. I stopped and said, are y'all offering, is that real? He said, yeah. And he got all animated. His name is Greg Steffens in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. And he said, yeah, we got people leaving other banks and coming over here and opening a checking account with us, and they're not even getting divorced or anything. And anyway, I just sat down and talked to him about it. And I said, oh my gosh, how do you make money? And he said, well, we're 100% loaned up. So any dollar we can bring in, we know we're going to make some money on it. Make a long story short, when I started doing some digging into the data and realized that what he had, every bank and credit union in the country, this would be a weapon they could use against the big banks. So, and then the new company with Quilo, it's the same thing. The customers are already borrowing money. They're all getting installment loans and they're getting it from these other sources. So I didn't have the struggle everybody else did.
And congrats, Don, to you too for the Banker's Choice Award at the recent ICBA Live. Great accomplishment. For y'all did great, but you came home with the gold. So that's
Thank
good.
you. Thank you very much.
Pankit, let's talk about, how did you know you had a business? I mean, you're 400 employees and $6 million in revenue. That's a long slog to get there, my friend. So how did you and Anand figure this out, that one, we could do this, and two, we could make money at it? Because, I have an expression around here. I'll say it more nicely than I normally do, but if nobody buys what you're selling, you don't have a business. So that's kind of important. So tell us about how you knew you had that business.
Yeah, so as an entrepreneur, you always think that you have this bright idea and there is a market and there's an acceptance of the idea from a market point of view. What we did was a couple of things. We went with the idea with a few of the customers, and if the customer was not willing to buy the idea before the idea became a reality, that we were not willing to go down that path. And just bear with you in terms of what we mean. We felt that, so we now have 3 lines of products. So we have a product in the area of endpoint security, we have a product in the area of identity governance, and then we have a product in the area of security monitoring. In all these 3 offerings, there was a blueprint of what that offering would look like. And we had some idea and some minimal viable product that we had built, but not much of an effort. I would say probably a couple of months of effort with a couple of resources. It was absolutely a raw straw man, even not a product, just a raw straw man. And we would go to a customer and say, you know what, we have seen this problem in the industry. We believe that you have a similar problem. Will you be willing to buy this if I make this happen? And the customer would say yes. Then we would tell the customer, and maybe we are probably too good as salespeople here, but we told the customer that, okay, write us a purchase order. Write a purchase order for this product, and it doesn't matter what the value of the purchase order was. We actually were not looking for money. We were looking for accountability, and accountability on both sides. Accountability on the customer side, that even if it meant $1,000 that you were going to spend for you to buy the product, which meant that A, there was a legitimate need for that technology. 2, it went through a procurement process within your environment. So you are going to hold yourself accountable to the technology that you are going to buy. And most importantly, you are going to hold us accountable in delivering that capability. And it did not mean much from a financial impact perspective, but in all of these 3, we got a few things. We got, when the product became ready, there was already a customer that came out along with it. So when we would go to the next customer and they would say, hey, you know what, I like it. Who is using it? I say, okay, that guy is using it, right? Because the customer lived with us through the journey of us building the product. 2, we never did R&D for the sake of R&D, because sometimes with this technology enamored folks, you love building and building products, not really knowing if there is a business need. So there were never any sets of features, functionality that the market never wanted. So everything that we started building out as a bare bones product had a legitimate business need from a feature functionality. So there was no overloading of features because someone sat in the conference room, had this bright, like, okay, let's pump in this feature and that feature. There was never a feature that had no market reality. And third, it was purpose built, right? And this three can never happen if you do not have very early validation. Now, maybe we were lucky, maybe we were too good a salespeople or a combination thereof. But I would really encourage entrepreneurs who are going out building products to get into the validation cycle as early as possible before burning too much of money and time behind it.
Good deal. Awesome. Thank you for that. And congratulations on the remarkable success that you continue to have. Ryan, we're getting down. We've got about 15 minutes left. So I'll ask you to also share in this. And then I'd love to open up for questions a little bit. I think we've covered many of the topics, certainly not all of them we can in an hour. But Ryan, if I could ask you also, how did you know that you had a business with DocFox?
Yeah, so I suppose I've done this a couple of times now because we started off, first of all, at a dev shop that we built. And then I noticed a need or a pain in the big banks for around an account opening for complex entities. And then we figured out offshore where there was a market. And then coming to the States, I had to say, okay, well, I have a whole bunch of clients there, but will clients in America use this thing? And I think very similar to everyone else's comments was really around customer testing. And my whole philosophy was, I need to be able to sell the first 10 customers myself, right? And in particular, those first 10 customers have to be buying the same thing, using it in the same way, and paying the same kind of pricing, right? The same kind of pricing terms. Because otherwise I'm just a consulting firm that has 10 unique clients. And so that was when I knew, okay, great, we've got the start of a market. The next question was, how big is that market? Because if it's just a market of 10, then that's not terribly exciting. And so for me, the way that we assess that is we take a very disciplined and data-driven approach. And we've built this out really based on kind of like the lean startup model, plus a mix with a book called Crossing the Chasm, which I use as like my Bible for this stuff. And so we have disciplined interviews where we'll go and interview out all these different clients, and as a group team, we'll review all the interviews, all the data. We'll then have a working hypothesis that we evaluate and test. We'll be evaluating, then great, how big is that market? As a team, we kind of vote. So it's incredibly structured. And I think that as an organization, we've got there's like a 14-step process that we have internally that we run every single time we want to enter a new market or build a new product. Or even launch like a new feature in a particular vertical. We'll run mini versions of that. And so I think, so for me, it's really around, hey, can I sell the first 10? If I can sell the first 10, that's a really encouraging sign that we can then kind of step on to the next level.
Good deal. Thank you. So what I'd like to do is ask the folks who are participating with us today, if they have any questions, please put that into the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to ask each of you, I'll give each of you about 15 or 20 seconds. Ryan, I'm going to start with you. Greatest challenge you have encountered as an entrepreneur?
I think that, yeah, one of the greatest challenges for me was establishing a business and then coming to the States to start from scratch. So which was really humbling and I think just a great lesson.
Good deal. And today you are what, 250 clients?
Yeah, just over about 260 or so. Yeah.
Awesome. Kim, how about you? Greatest challenge?
Yeah, I hate to beat the drum, but it was COVID. So we launched our product in the first quarter of 2020. On today, 2 years ago, when the global pandemic was announced, we were flying back home from ICBA Live, had 180 banks that had seen us at 3 national conferences that said, hey, we buy into your value proposition, call us. And then the world changed. And so we had some tough decisions to make. Do we keep at this? Once we realized it was going to be a long-term pandemic, right? And we did. We doubled down. We doubled the size of the company. We went out and raised additional capital and made sure when we came out of it that our product was 10 times better than it was when we launched. And so those were some tough nights. I'll have to say.
And I remember that day exactly. I guess what was it? It was I think we got back March 13th actually, and that was the day the world changed. And I think it was, I always laughed that I think the ICBA Live in Orlando that year in 2020 was the last conference on the planet. We were lucky enough to participate in it. But yeah, interesting. COVID was certainly been a challenge. Pankit, let me ask you, greatest challenge?
The business of security is the business of trust. So how do you build trust? It's like almost asking someone to give the keys to their house to an unknown entity. And building trust along the way is always a challenge, right? And for a newbie, that with literally no pedigree. That was, there's always challenge with people and customers and markets and all of that. But security is a slightly more close-knit industry, and unless you have a big name, people don't want to give the keys to their house. So that was the biggest one for us.
Well, at least we think you're a trustworthy guy. We're pretty sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Don, biggest challenge.
Definitely the first company. I recruited 2 other people to help form the first company, Banking Solutions. We had a little bit of money, and it took us 9 months to generate our first dollar in revenue. I went to the local gas station and I charged my gas. I talked to my mortgage company every month. I went to the local grocery store and arranged to put my groceries on a file. And 9 months into it, I was able to go call the North American Mortgage and say I can make all 9 payments. I was able to settle my bill at the gas station, which was thousands of dollars and thousands of dollars at the grocery store. So that's when all my family said, you should give up. You need to go get a job. I said, nope, it's going to work. So that was my biggest challenge.
Good deal. Good deal. Yeah, those are not uncommon challenges for us to overcome as entrepreneurs. You've never lived until you put payroll on a credit card, right? I know you all can agree with that. Caleb, biggest challenge?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go higher level. Referencing Ryan's like 19-step ideation process, we have a similar way that we evaluate what we do and what we do next and what order we do things, and just understanding when you're heading down a path that's not going to work, and recognizing that and abandoning all of that work in a timely manner. That is really challenging, especially at the beginning, because you're gonna hit so many ideas that are just going to be bad, and you're not going to know until you try it. So it's really difficult to give up on an idea, but you got to do it. You got to just give up and you got to move on to the next one. And that's been the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah, we've got about 5 minutes left. And one of the questions that was asked here, and I'll let you guys see who wants to put your hand up, but someone said they would love to hear thoughts on establishing your team's culture and the effect that culture has had on the success of their business. And, culture is a big thing, right? I don't know if anybody in particular would like to respond to that. Ryan?
I'd love to give a quick comment. So I think for me, our culture is like everything. I would say that, we started from the very beginning having a key focus on our culture, and it's the best investment you can make. I would say that one of the most important things in understanding with culture is that anyone you add into the organization is going to add and morph that culture, which means that the single most important thing I think that you can do is to have an ongoing evaluation of who are we, like your values and who you are. The greatest thing I ever heard is they're uncovered, right? So you uncover your values. You don't put down stuff that you're not, because then those are aspirational and those aren't really your values. So I think an ongoing conversation is always uncovering who are we, what are our values, and then making sure that when you go out and recruit, you recruit according to those values. So what we say in our organization is we want maximum diversity in every single sense of the organization, apart from values. So core values, we want zero diversity. We want everyone to have the same core values. And so when we recruit and we interview for folks, if you don't fit our values, then you're not the right fit for the organization. And so that's how we preserve our culture, is to make sure that for core values that we've identified, we always interview with core values top of mind.
Anybody want to add to that at all?
Yeah, so they say the culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So that's a oft repeated statement. And for us, what it means that when I say simplify security, it's not a construct of technology. We're not about going around making security simple. That is important, but that's not the only one. How do we become the company that is the most easiest to do business with, right? And simplicity is also that realm. So if I have a great product, but I'm and a very, let's say, easy to use product, but I am difficult to do business with, then that message of simplify security doesn't align well. And that happens only if every single individual who's part of the organization also believes the same thing, right? So whether it is my finance, sales, HR, product, support, every part has to live, breathe, and believe that same thought process, right? So inculcating that, and as I say, and we just had a session, we just came off a session with our team, and we were talking about the fact that in the business of security, The customer remembers you when they are at their worst. The reason they remember you is because something bad has happened, right? An attack has happened, a breach has happened. How do you behave and believe at that point of time is what they will remember you for going forward. So if I'm going to show a piece of contract, a statement of work, or an agreement at that point in time, say that, hey, you did not sign up for this. This was out of scope. I had told you what you did not pay for it. That doesn't augur well in that situation, right? So you got to be there at that point of time. We will talk commercials later. We'll talk everything else later. But at that point of time, we need to be the one that is the easiest to do business with. And that's the culture that we want to drive. Beyond everything else, that's the fundamental ethos of who we are as a company.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. One last question I want to just put out there. So, because we just got a few minutes, how do you overcome the moments where you have felt self-doubt in the process of building your company? You know, it's sort of, this issue of, hey, I don't know if I can do this, right? Who wants to respond to that? That's another question somebody has asked, is how do you overcome those moments of self-doubt?
Yeah, I'll jump in here, Wayne, and I'll say for me, it's been my team. Because it's really been, we've been on the journey together from day one, a core group of us, right? Our team has expanded now. We're nowhere near as large as some of the other folks here on the phone, in this meeting, but it really, I mean, I can remember those days vividly last year, right? During COVID. And the team just always rallied. They just always rallied. And so when you have a team around you that believes as much as you do in your product and in your vision, that's what I've leaned into and during that time.
Awesome. That's great. Guys, I think we're going to wrap it up. First of all, I can't wait to see all of you in Little Rock. You're coming in Sunday to spend a week with us here finally, which has been way overdue and long overdue. I wish you all a safe journey. Thank you all for just being inspiring today and just really sharing, kind of your guts with us a little bit. And I hope that you have given others courage, thought, and an interest in trying to pursue what matters to you and to an industry that you're serving, an opportunity to make a living, to build a great business, to raise capital, to raise people, and the things that we talked about today. So thank you all. I'm very grateful for what you shared with us today and kind of putting it out there. In the meantime, I think for our, I want to just once again say thanks to our sponsors, obviously the ICBA, who's been critical in helping us put this program together over the last 4 years, the state of Arkansas, again, with their continued support, the Little Rock Chamber, Frost Accounting, Simmons Bank, and Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings. We couldn't do this without you all. Also want to just recognize my team here. Like you guys, I am blessed with the best team in the world. And I want to thank everybody here who helps to make these programs possible. Also want to make sure that folks go on to our website at theventurecenter.co to look for the upcoming events that we have going on. The Venture Center provides about 60 events from the community side each year. Please come join us. Lots to learn. If you have suggestions or ideas that you think would be helpful to us, we're here to serve you and to serve our community. And we look forward to seeing you all soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you guys in Little Rock this weekend soon. Thank you.
All right. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.